All right, what's good, Foundation Nation? We got an exciting disc here today. This is the First Run Era from Finish Line Discs. This is a new company. If you're not familiar with it, Drew Gibson started this company in a partnership with Finish Line Discs, which is the name of it, and then Infinite Discs. Although these are made by one of Drew's manufacturers that he has a connection with, not by Infinite or Innova, which I think is pretty apparent in the disc. But this is the forged plastic. So this blend to me feels the most similar to a 400G from Prodigy. That's initially what I think. It kind of has that gummy feel to it. Pretty decent grip, a little bit oily, but not bad. It's kind of got this tooling on the bottom, which is kind of unique. I haven't seen this exact print before. Although admittedly, I don't really like the size of it and how close it is to the rim, because if you're grabbing a power grip on that, it doesn't feel great, but not the end of the world. Initial thoughts of the disc. I don't know a ton about this. I've heard mixed opinions from the people who have gotten their hands on it. I've seen Drew throw it, and it seems to be kind of a flip-up disc for him. Looking at it, just kind of looking at the rim, there's not a ton to take away. It looks kind of neutral. I would lean on the side of a bit of stability, just based on the way it's kind of curved. It almost reminds me of like a deeper, sharper Valkyrie is like the first thing that comes to mind. Like this is, I think this is going to be, I'm not sure what the flight numbers are said to be for this, but it seems to be on the quicker side of fairway drivers. I'd probably put this as like a 9-speed, but we're going to go ahead and give it a little hyzer to start with. We have a little bit of tailwind right to left. I'm very, very curious about this. Headwind, sorry. Thank you, Connor. We have a bit of a headwind right to left. I'm going to throw this on a bit of hyzer and just see if it wants to pop up. I really don't know what this is going to do. I'm very curious. First of all, that jumped out of my hand. All right, so into the headwind, we got a pretty quick flip up. But then when it got to the turn, it didn't dump right, and it came back pretty strong left at the end. So initially, I would continue to think kind of a neutral flying fairway, because it could handle the headwind, but it wasn't like beefy in the headwind. It really jumped out of my hand pretty quick. That disc seemed to fly really far. It had quite a bit of glide. I'll be curious to see when I give it flat into a tailwind what the stability it has, because I would think flat with a tailwind, it shouldn't turn a ton based on that throw, because I think there's a good bit of headwind, so I think that's why that got that flip. But fascinating start to this review. We're in the other direction now, so we're gonna have a little bit of a tailwind. It's not too crazy, and we're gonna try and throw this a little more flat and really get on it. I'm kind of excited to see how far this thing can go, because it seems like it really moves. Okay, so I think that came out of my hand with a little bit of Annie. I wanted to really make sure I didn't throw it on hyzer again. The wind didn't do anything. There really wasn't any wind in the air, so that was a pretty true flight. As you can see, it seems like a disc that is okay with turning. It's going to give you a little bit of turn, but it's not going to dump right. And then it's still going to have a little bit of fade at the end. So it seems to be a very true to a neutral flying fairway, which is cool. And it went pretty far again. So we're going to give it the next throw. I'm going to give it one more with a lot of Annie to see what it does, and then I'm going to give it another one with a ton of hyzer, see if I can keep it on hyzer the whole way. We're back into the headwind direction. I'm going to wait until the wind dies down a bit, so where I'm not throwing into a crazy gust, but this time I'm going to give this a significant amount of anhyzer. Just curious to see, I mean, this disc is definitely going to hold anhyzer. That is easy to be seen, but I'm curious to see if it'll burn just and roll if I throw it with some Annie into the headwind, or just kind of what integrity it has. But I think the most interesting flight, which I'll do last, is going to be where I give it a lot of hyzer, because I think this is going to be the type of disc that you throw for pushing kind of pop-up hyzers and maybe hyzer flip to slight turn type shots. So, but we're going to go with the Annie for this one. Well, I threw about an 800-foot roller. Okay, so as I expected, because this disc is not shy about turning, if you throw it with a hard on a ton of anhyzer into a little bit of headwind, yes, it will in fact get down. That being said, a roller was kind of sick. So it seems like this disc has a pretty big range, and when I say that, I mean that the amount of shots you can throw with it. Because so far, I've thrown one shot that had a little bit of hyzer, it popped up, turned, and then came back, so kind of a straighter shot. I threw a flat to turn shot, and I'm now throwing a roller with this disc. So if I give it a bunch of hyzer and it doesn't flip all the way up and it kind of pushes hyzer, we've got ourselves a really good neutral, high-range disc, and it also goes far. So this is a pretty interesting disc. This seems to be kind of a Swiss Army disc of sorts. Coin that. So this is what I'm most looking forward to. If you watch Drew play disc golf, Drew Gibson, who designed this disc or helped design it, he kind of has two throws, like arm slots that he throws out of. He has these overstable drivers that he really likes to crank over and almost flex. And then a lot of his discs though, like the buzzes he throws and etc., he likes to throw from a ton of hyzer and get them to pop up. So this is the angle that I've seen him throwing this disc on, and I'm most curious to see what it does. Because at the end of the day, hyzer is really one of the most comfortable angles to throw. So there's nothing wrong with the disc being best thrown on hyzer. Nothing wrong with that at all. So I'm going to give this a rip on hyzer. The wind is still kind of swirling, but it should be mostly at my back. It might be a little left to right, so it might get shoved a bit. But I'm going to give this a lot of hyzer and really juice it and just see if we can get, I'm looking for kind of a floaty, pushy left hyzer with a little bit of flip up. We'll see what we get. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's so sick. Okay, that was pretty awesome. I mean, I gave that a ton of hyzer, threw it low, and I mean, it flipped up and just went laser beam straight, and then slowly pushed and faded left at the end. That was sick. And this disc definitely goes really far, because that, I mean, that's like I said, that thing just feels like a 9-speed rim-wise, but I think it's flying like maybe a 10 or an 11 distance-wise. That was what I was looking for, because that means this disc doesn't have range on the other side. Like you can't throw this like an overstable disc. It's never really going to be your right to left disc, I don't think, but it can be your straight disc. It can be a disc that finishes left, and you can throw turnovers with it. So it's definitely very much a neutral disc. I think I've seen all I need to see with this disc at this point. I know when I talked to Drew, he said his goal was to basically design a disc that every player would have a use for. Obviously he's going to have it in his bag. He can throw shots even harder than I just threw that, much harder, but he can get the disc to flip up off a hyzer, turn a little bit, get big distance, or throw nice turnover hyzer flip shots, whereas somebody with a slower arm speed is going to be able to throw this disc. They're probably still going to be able to force it over, it might come back, or they can throw a shot on a lot of hyzer like I did and it's going to push hyzer a little more. But it is a true neutral disc, which I think is the goal of what they are really looking for here. It glides a ton, it feels pretty solid. I would say foundation certified score for the Era, I'd be pretty comfortable giving this an 8.7. That's a pretty high score for me, but just seeing that final throw and how awesome that looked in the air, that really sold it for me. I was kind of more around an 8.5, but I think after seeing that, I have to bump it up. This disc is pretty cool. I'm not sure if we have any Eras left at foundationdisc.com, but if they have sold out, we're gonna get some more because it's a great disc. People are loving it. So make sure to check it out. Keep your eye out for a restock, but we'll see you next time.